I'd like to focus on demand because I think that oil can give us a look into like a snapshot of what's going on in Europe, what's going on in China, what's going on domestically. We're strong. China's maybe not as strong. Europe, we're worried about, maybe zero growth or sub 1% growth. I'd like to look at that, but you're an expert on the commodity itself and on the supply. So I want to learn. We're going to talk about both.
Yeah.
So there's light sweet, and there's heavy sour. And there's the shale is light sweet, and there's a lot more of that around. So we're missing some of the heavy. We don't have enough heavy. Heavy's used for diesel because it's the middle, right? The
middle of the barrel.
The middle of the barrel.
Yeah.
The other stuff is used for gasoline. How does that impact the overall price? This dynamic.
Well, you're right, Joe, from the perspective that you have this abundance of light sweet crude. The US is going gangbusters. We're going to hit 13 million barrels a day in terms of production next year. But at the moment, we have OPEC production cuts, we have Venezuelan sanctions, we have Iran sanctions, and those guys are producing the heavy sour stuff. And so what you have is this issue where the US refiners want to get their hands on that heavy stuff because their refiners are geared towards refining the heavier, gunkier, lower quality stuff to produce that diesel. So what we're getting is more gasoline because these guys are running lighter crude, so we have an excess of gasoline and we're lacking somewhat in diesel, a situation that is only going to get exacerbated as we move into 2020 because we have this game-changing situation called IMO 2020, where every ocean-going vessel has to suddenly consume low-sulfur diesel, essentially. And so it's going to cause this massive flip in the market. And so everyone really needs that heavy, sour stuff so that they can get more diesel, but the abundance is in the light stuff.
So what will that do to just WTI or Brent? What will that do to the overall price? It'll go up because of that, or it'll go down because of that?
Well, there's going to be that demand growth still coming through for that light stuff, but there's just more demand for the heavier stuff.
Right.
And so while historically we've seen lower prices for that heavier crude, you're seeing that getting to parity, and in some places it going above that. And so that's a situation that isn't going to go away going forwards, particularly when you have the OPEC production cuts coming through and Venezuela in an absolute state there.
Okay, but we're really talking about ocean-going vessels. We're not talking about passenger vehicles as much anymore, right? I would never buy one. I had one once, and it was the worst thing I ever. I mean, the sound, the
a diesel car.
Yeah, the acceleration. It's just, and then if you think you're saving the planet,
like
if you think you're saving the planet, it's because they've jury-rigged the emission control on it. It's actually not even as good as a regular car.
The ocean-going thing is massive just because you're suddenly going to need 2 million barrels a day more of diesel.
Okay.
In terms of gasoline demand, though, it's kind of leveling off here in the US.
We're really in wheat. What is it? Is China slowing down from what you can tell from where crude is? Or
Absolutely.
It is.
So they're bringing in more crude, but they're exporting more products. And so it is an actual domestic demand that is consuming that diesel, that gasoline. They're exporting more. The challenge is as they push that out onto the market, then that's pushing back other people's pieces of the pie. And so you're getting a market now. You can't just focus on the crude side of things. You've got more diesel coming to the market, more gasoline. Russia is a great example as well, where, yes, they're starting to cut their crude production to look as if they're in line with the OPEC and OPEC production cut deal. They're pushing out more products instead.
How about here?
In the US
demand must be big in the US with the economy, no?
It's kind of flattish.
Really?
Yeah. So diesel demand is a little higher.
You remember when we heard that emissions, everybody was bragging that we cut our emissions, our CO2 emissions, and then it came out that we were actually up 3 or 4% because of the strong economy. Were you just using more energy? You're not seeing that in demand for oil, though?
It's a little higher in the US, but not that great. So we are consuming 20 million barrels a day here in the US, world's largest consumer. But really the situation is that we're talking about Europe as well. You are seeing that slowing there, particularly in Germany, coming through in their product demand.